everyone, and today I'm going to be discussing the Shatter Me series. The first part of this video I'm going to try to be as non-spoilery as possible, and then I'll really start ranting about these books. The book series is about a girl named Juliet who has the power to kill someone with her touch. The first book goes over introducing you to Juliet and the world and a couple of other main characters. The beginning was kind of slow and intense, really. Not intense as in action-packed way, but it was written in a way that I just had to stop after every chapter, just collect my thoughts on it. So it took me a little longer to get through Shatter Me than I had hoped, but it was still an amazing book. Unravel Me, she becomes more aware that she's not the only one out there with powers, even though when I started reading the books, it made me think that, oh, she's the only one with this power. How did this happen? But you're introduced to other people with the same powers in Unravel Me, and it has sort of like an X-Men feel to it, which it's not X-Men. It's the furthest thing from it, but I kind of like the few similarities it had, and the fact that she wasn't the only one with weird powers. It's the longest book of the series, but you're getting introduced to a whole slew of characters. Juliet learns more about her powers, and she has more than just the power to kill people with her touch. She's a pretty dangerous character, but also very sweet. I really love her as a character. Ignite Me, oh Ignite Me, it's my favorite book of the series. It really was. Juliet goes from a weak, I really don't want to call her a weak character, but she was weak, as in the fact that she always needed someone there to hold her hand. This book, she breaks away. She actually comes into herself as a strong, independent woman. A very strong, independent, kick-ass woman, really. So I loved this book. The character development over the first two books did not progress as I thought they would, but Ignite Me, it had so much character development that characters that I didn't like before, I just fell in love with. And especially Kenji. I mean, I loved Kenji to begin with, but we learned so much more about him. He became my favorite character. The ending, I'm not going to give much away, but the ending was very unsatisfactory to me. I think they could have made a fourth book to this series, or made, it didn't really need a fourth book, but it needed like an epilogue. So you know where all these characters actually end up, like maybe 10 years down the road. I also read the novellas, Destroy Me and Fracture Me. This was the first novella I ever read. And it surprised me. I don't really like the idea of novellas because they're like just little snippets of things that happened in the books that are just taken out into another character's point of view. So I really didn't like the idea of novellas, but I decided to read this after I finished the whole series because, well, I was having a small little hangover, which this helped me get over. And Destroy Me is in Warner's point of view, and while between the first and second book. And I found it really, really interesting, and I wanted to keep on reading in his point of view. And you learn so much about him. It was worth reading Destroy Me. Fracture Me is in Adam's point of view between the second and third book, and it kind of irritated me more than anything. The first part of it was literally from the ending of the second book, but instead of in Juliet's point of view, it was in Adam's point of view. The part between the second and third book, he was more frustrating. It made me not like Adam as a character. I was already not liking him very much in the second book, and I flat out really almost hated him in the third book. It just made me dislike him even more. That is it for the non-spoilery section, so if you have not read any of these books, please leave now. The introduction to Juliet as a character, I Oh, when she was locked up in the asylum, all I could think is, how did she survive almost 300 days? What was it? 345 days, wasn't it? Oh, 300. 264 days. Locked up in a tiny little room with nothing but herself and a window to look out of. I would have gone star crazy. I don't know how she didn't. I mean, I know she had that little notebook and she could write out her thoughts and everything, but the way they describe this notebook, it's like this small and this small. And she had a pencil or pen that, you know, had to be running out of life, like really soon. I don't know how she didn't go crazy. When she finally got a roommate, Adam, I was like, oh, this is how they're gonna break out together. They're gonna, you know, this is how everything's gonna start. No, big twist, he's a part of the army and he's taking her to Warner. But Warner, I liked Adam, and when I was reading this book, there was quite a few people saying, oh, I'm Team Warner, I'm Team Warner, I have been since the beginning. And all I could think is, you're Team Warner? It's like Adam, it's like, after we learned that Adam can actually touch her, I was like, well, I have to be Team Adam if he can touch her. I mean, why is everybody saying Team Warner? But there was something about Warner that I actually liked, especially when Juliet mentioned his mother and he had that reaction. I was just, oh, he's a lot deeper than it's playing out. They're playing him to be. It's like, so there was always something about Warner I liked, but I knew that I wouldn't choose which team I was on until there was something that was going to happen to Adam that I disliked. And that at the beginning I was like, she's just going to cut him off. He's just going to have to kill Adam, because I was like, there's no way that she can make him so frustrating and mean that I'm going to want to just strangle him and go Team Warner all the way. But, you know, and it was kind of hard to be Team Warner too when he put Juliet through the things that he did. This book, it was just a lot of frustration and being introduced to a new character in a new world. That's not the best thing, but the book had me reading and reading and reading. I was actually reading this on my trip to Tennessee, so I didn't have a lot of time to read. I probably read maybe 2 to 3 chapters a night. It is actually a very, very good book. Like I said, it's a bit frustrating, but if you can power through like the first, I'd say 50 to 60 pages, I mean, you can really get into this book. Some people may take the first 100 pages. Unravel Me, on the other hand, starts out, it's still slower than I would have hoped for a second book, but it's a really more action-packed, but you also have more frustration with Juliet because her and Adam are having relationship issues all the way through the books. Especially this one. It's like this is 461 pages of teenage angst. So it was really, really frustrating to deal with that. It's like I've never read such relationship-oriented books. I mean, all 3 of these books were, the main part of them was the relationships, and the war kind of took a backstory to all that. And though I liked reading them that way, I would have liked to have seen more of like the strategizing about the war and how the world itself looked now, because we really don't get a good view of what the war zone, the city itself looks like. We're not even sure what city we're in. You do get a better idea of what everything looks like when you read Destroy Me, because Destroy Me tells you about the compounds that the people are in. It shows us what those look like. They're supposed to be shipping crates that are like stacked together, and that's what the compounds look like. And when I was physically reading the first 2 books, all I could think is like these big concrete structures, and that's not what they were at all. Unravel Me brings in a whole slew of characters, like Kenji, who was introduced in Shatter Me, was He's become a bigger part of this book, and I love him so much. I wish I could have seen more of James, though. James and him interacting was really interesting in Ignite Me, and I wish I could have seen that more in Unravel Me. And James wasn't in this much at all, really. He was towards the end, but the first half of the book, he wasn't in there barely any at all. It's like, where's James at? We meet Castle. I don't really like Castle very much. He's a very nice character. I'm glad he made Omega Point and he's finding all these people that have the powers that he has, which is controlling things with his mind. I mean, or moving things with his mind, not controlling. Very interesting power. He's a very interesting character, but he's also too positive and he's too trusting with people. So I didn't really like that about him. Brendan, is I believe how you pronounce his name, is a like albino British person. He's very, very white, blonde hair, and the only color on him really is his blue eyes, which I find really interesting. And he can control electricity. And he's British. What's not to love there? Is Winston, who is like I guess they're not their doctor, but they're like little scientists that can create things for them. And he's a very interesting character, especially once you get to know him better in Ignite Me. But in this one, he's kind of interesting, and you can learn he can stretch his body into different proportions, and that's like, and he thinks it's not cool. How's that not cool? Any kind of power is cool. Okay, maybe killing with your touch is not that cool when you can't control it. This whole book, you're basically getting introduced to new characters and learning about Omega Points and what all the reestablishment is lying about. And they also had like a little mission where they had to get supplies. So they broke into one of the storage places where they had food and I guess first aid supplies and all that. They didn't really go into what they were stealing, but Emori, one of the other new people you meet, he was talking about his mother and how much she liked chocolate and wondering if they could bring some back. So I'm assuming it was food that they were stealing. Juliet's new power is also introduced. Well, I wouldn't call it new. She's always had it, but she didn't know she had it. She got mad that they were testing on Adam to see why he could live through her touch. She kind of splits the earth. It's like they're underground, and she literally splits the ground by punching it. And, oh wow, it doesn't hurt her really at all. It like scuffs up her glove and that's it. It's like now they're trying to figure out what the hell and trying to get her to learn how to control it. And Castle's getting frustrated with her, and Kenji is as well, because all she can really think about is Adam and the suffering they were putting him through. So she wasn't really, I wouldn't really call her not interested, but that's kind of what it was. She didn't want to learn about her new powers. I mean, she didn't want to have her powers at all. She just wanted to be normal. At the end, I think the last two chapters, after Anderson, who is the leader of the reestablishment, or one of them, and is Warner's father, and we learn Adam's father as well. The brothers, such family love. Especially since Warner tried to kill him. After Anderson shoots her, yeah, she finally gets some major character development in the last couple chapters. I mean, she really decides, okay, I don't want to live like this. I've wanted to die all my life until this point where I actually have something to live for. So, and then she starts becoming a badass character. Then we move on to Ignite Me, which is my favorite book of the series. Juliet's finally taking control of her life. She's actually causing the situation to happen. She's going to go to Anderson and kick his ass, basically. And that's basically what all this is. I mean, she's been shot. We find out in the first few chapters that everyone on Omega Point has been killed. Or at least the reestablishment believes so. But once Juliet is healed enough from her gunshot wound, which I forgot to mention Sonia and Sarah, but they actually heal her, and they never go into how Warner knew where they were, how he had them there to help. It's like, okay, Anderson was talking about not becoming crippled anymore after Juliet got a hold of him the first time, and it's like, okay, and in his house no less, or the house where his dad keeps his mother. I'm skipping over a lot of stuff that I should have mentioned, but this is my first discussion, so I'm sorry about that. My camera stopped recording and started recording again. So I hope nothing important got cut out. If so, I'm very, very sorry. Pretty much everything but the last like 30 to 40 pages is Juliet finding everyone, or let's say that she goes to the place where Omega Point got bombed and runs into Kenji. Her and Warner run into Kenji, and Warner uses Kenji's power to disappear. It's like, okay, he doesn't have to be touching. That was so awesome about how Warner could touch her, is the fact that, you know, he could absorb powers and they wouldn't affect him at all. I loved that. It's like, after I learned that in the second book, I was like, Team Warner. It's like, he can touch her, no consequences. Nothing wrong is going to happen. I'm Team Warner all the way. Because I was really starting to dislike Adam in book 2. In this one, I started to flat out hate him. Because once Juliet, you know, decided that she's going to fight the reestablishment, when Adam, he was tired of war, he was tired of fighting and running and everything else, and he just wanted a place with his brother that was safe. I can understand that. I really can, when you have to think of someone besides yourself in moments of war. But it's like, wake up, man. It's like, you're in a war zone. You literally have no way of making money, of getting food, or, you know, So I didn't really like, actually I flat out hated him for most of this book until like halfway through, when he, or a little after halfway through, when he wakes up and decides, okay, I'm not going to be able to live much longer like this. I have to do it for James. But when Juliet steps up and decides that she's going to kill Anderson, that she's going to take over, I guess, the United States part of the reestablishment, she's going to be the leader. It's a wake-up call. And the only ones that haven't died in the Omega Point is, I think, Ian, which I don't know much about. Allie, I don't know if that's her name. I don't think that's her name. Don't know much about her because she doesn't talk much. But I think her and Adam would make a good pair, because that's what he's looking for. Someone who's quiet and blushes a lot, I guess. Then we have Lily, who has a photographic memory. And then Kenji, of course, who can turn invisible. James, who can heal, which I loved finding out. It's like, Anderson has to have a gift if all of his kids have gifts. We have Winston, the stretchable guy, and then we have Brendan, who can electrocute people, and then we have Castle. This whole part of the book is like developing their powers and really learning how to control themselves and what they're going to do, get Anderson there in the first place, and how they're going to go about overthrowing him. And then the last 40 pages is all of the war. It's like the whole battle. All the action takes place in the last 30-40 pages, which I didn't mind, but I was getting to like the last few chapters and I was like, oh my god, is there another book that should be coming out? Is there something I don't know? The relationships in this one was a lot more muted than it was in the first 2 books, but it's like her and Warner are like living in the same space. I mean, he's sleeping in his office and she's sleeping in his bedroom. They're just taking everything one day at a time, and they're actually getting into fights, and she's not ready to be in a relationship. It develops their relationship slowly but really beautifully. It's not, they don't go into any kind of graphic scene when they actually do get together, but it is implied. The books overall were a fun, fast, fantastic read. I would recommend them anyone who's looking for anything new and interesting to read, because it's a dystopian novel that I've never really come across. And there's something about dystopian novels where they don't want to really give you how the ending, where things are resolved. It's like, would it kill just one author to resolve a dystopian novel? Even if it goes on for 7 books, I'm fine with that. Just resolve it. Not that I didn't love the ending where you see everyone's alive and okay and everything, but I really could have done with an epilogue. That is it for my Shatter Me discussion video. If any of you would like to discuss more about the books with me, I'll leave my GoodReads page link below, or you can just send me a message on YouTube. I think that's a thing. Is that a thing? Oh, YouTube does have a discussion link, a discussion tab on our YouTube page, so just send me a message on there. Nobody looks at it, so yeah. Highly recommend these books. A little too romance oriented for a lot of people's taste, but they were fantastic. That's all for now. See you guys on my next video. Bye.